Today on BRStv, we pull back the curtain on Reef Tank Lighting and show you the wizard. There are only 3 things that matter. Once you know them, mastering lighting is easy, and almost any popular light source can be set up to achieve near perfect results in minutes. All that's coming up. Hey, this is Brian with BRStv's Master Reef Tank Lighting mini-series, Set It and Forget It lighting tools for perfecting coral coloration, growth, and health. This is episode 1, our 5-minute guide, a recipe that when followed produces the desired results. The following episodes in this series digging into the science and finer details of why this all works. That entire playlist can be found pinned in the comments down below. End of story. If you learn how to perfect spread, spectrum, and par, mission accomplished. All the mystery has always been hidden in these 3 considerations. It's obvious why reefers who nail these concepts have so much success, and also obvious why the same challenges or less than desirable results consistently present themselves when even one of these is overlooked. We perfect each one of these individually with an eye on how they combine together to achieve the desired result, starting with spread and how light is distributed throughout the tank. Simply put, decades of results have proven the best lighting solutions and related thriving reef tanks are achieved when we blanket the light in even intensity, difficult to shadow light, avoiding prolonged hot spots of super high par that bleach corals and cool spots with ultra low par that starve them. The challenge is many of today's common reef LED lighting options are small, compact light sources that resemble spotlights more than they do blankets of light, often with focused lenses that, if installed incorrectly, are 1,000 par laser beams in the center, 300 par a few inches to the right, and only 30 par just a few inches over. Fortunately, the solution that is simple and achievable by every reefer with nearly any light, it's all in the installation and getting mounting height right. Raising the light up will disperse the concentrated light more evenly. Every light has a sweet spot mounting height where it will blanket the tank in a desired manner, especially when you consider multiple intersecting light sources. There are a couple methods to getting mounting height right, which starts with, if you haven't already picked up a light, make sure to get the right tool up front. Specifically, if you have a desired fixed mounting height, like a desire to use legs, a hood, or lower mounting height so it isn't blinding from a sitting position right next to the tank. If you can, it just makes sense to match a light's optimal performance or sweet spot to your specific desires. Most of the better manufacturers have thoroughly tested their lights and clearly share the optimal mounting height in their descriptions. However, Randy has a BRS Investigates on most of the lights that BRS offers with clear, data-backed, BRS recommended mounting height suggestions, all based on thousands of par measurements. Outside of that, there are a couple other ways to make sure the right tool you selected is installed for optimal performance. You may have a unique tank install or aquascape, but the simplest manner to ballpark it is just have a friend manually raise the light up until you see an unacceptable spill outside the tank, something you can often see on your hand. Best results will always have some spill, but 15% is about our limit. Most people can get very close to that just by eyeballing it. If you're in the pursuit of perfection, nothing beats a par meter, which allows you to tune the mounting height to the specifics of your tank and aquascape. It's just much easier to know that you've eliminated hot and cold spots from the tank when you can actually measure and confirm it. Spectrum is the second major consideration. Spectrums may be one of the greatest mysteries in reef tank lighting, with very few reefers understanding what all of these LED sliders bars actually do, but it doesn't have to be that hard. When we're talking spectrum, we're commonly referencing one of these wavelength charts, which can be kind of intimidating, but it's real simple once you know what you're looking at. Each color has a light wavelength assigned to it. For example, blue is very clearly around 450, so a blue lamp like the ATI Blue Plus or Royal Blue LED channel will have a peak on this chart in the blue spectrum around 450. The reason these charts matter is because corals utilize specific spectrum ranges for energy production, respiration, tissue production, growth, and other metabolic functions. These spectrum ranges are also what our eyes perceive as color and what makes a tank visually appealing. Blue light making the tank blue and some of the colors pop, cyan adding that teal color common to many tanks, the violet channel bringing out that actinic pump, and so on. Using those slider bars to get the spectrum mix ratio tuned to something good for both coral health and visual appeal is fairly easy. First, many light sources have actually done all the work for you. Kessel's optimized a number of LEDs to the right ratio and then hard-coded that broad blue spectrum blend so you can't mess it up. Just more or less add in the white to the eye and a couple tweaks to auxiliary spectrum. The Radion Blue G5 is even easier. The entire light is optimized to a proven spectrum mix. In this case, the only slider you need to use is the intensity, and they all go up and down together. Outside of options like that, I would suggest checking out Randy's Investigates again on your specific light because he's done all the work for you, confirming the light and spectrum ratio meets metabolic needs, tuned the eye for a pleasing color, and provided the resulting spectrum shots for your review. You can make small tweaks from there, but this is certainly the easiest path. Outside of those two options, because no home reefer has a multi-$1,000 spectrometer at home, it's a bit of an act of faith and just assumption that any reputable lighting manufacturer has demonstrated an understanding of LEDs used for an application like reefing, the metabolic needs of corals, and selected the right bin LEDs and the right ratio of those LEDs for a reef tank application. The best path here based on reefers sharing their own results. Assuming that's the case, the most effective rule of thumb that I've seen is slide all the blue channels to max. This is where the corals will get a vast majority of their energy from, and then add the cool white channel in until the tank looks good to the eye. If your light has the option, you can also add green and red in for visual color to the eye as well. Red in particular will make some of the reds in the fish and corals pop, but also combines with the blue light to give a purple haze in the tank. You may or may not find that purple haze appealing. There are of course some unknowns in how each of these individual spectrums affect the corals, specifically the red, so I'd use them sparingly. If you want, you can make small adjustments to nearly all the channels to the eye at this point. The only one I wouldn't mess with is the royal blue channel because royal blue is a channel best optimized for most corals' metabolic needs. Once you have all of these adjusted, this is your spectrum ratio. They should all be adjusted or scaled up or down together to achieve the intensity or PAR needs of the corals, which is next. The third and last component of nailing your reef tank lighting for good is getting the PAR or intensity right, more or less balancing spread and spectrum to achieve a specific PAR goal for your corals in the tank. PAR being a measurement of intensity, in this case perfected to the coral types. The most important factor here is setting the lights up too high, and more PAR than they can handle is 100 times more likely to kill the coral than not enough light. PAR's not horsepower, where more is always better. Getting PAR wrong is one of the most overlooked and biggest causes of long-term frustrations with a reef tank. It's not something that can be adjusted by the eye, and the simple not knowing if you got it right causes reefers to mess with it frequently, causing more problems. This is something you want to set it right the first time and then leave it alone. There are 3 ways to get PAR right. Ask someone you trust for their recommendation on where the slider should be adjusted to. Best results from someone who has achieved the type of results that you want, has a tank size similar to yours, uses the same light, spaced and mounted at a similar height, and has the same basic type of corals. Their recommendation should get you pretty close. Second, again, check out Randy's Investigates. He gives you ideal intensity settings for a 60 cube and 120 gallon tank. That may not be your exact size tank, but if it's close, you can use that information to make an educated guess, and most people will get pretty darn close to the goal numbers. Third, if you're planning on putting more than a couple $100s in corals in the tank or spent a fortune on lighting, the most cost-effective thing you can do in the entire hobby is spend $70 on renting a PAR meter for a week and getting PAR right. Optimized to your specific tank shape, corals, and aquascape, done in a manner where you know for sure this lighting thing is done right, and you can leave it alone and just watch the success that comes from that. Getting PAR right just means adjusting the intensity of your LED ratio into ranges where the corals do well. Most LPS polyps and softies do well in 75 to 150, and SPS do well in 200 to 350 PAR. If you get close, PAR will never be an issue for your tank. For those of you with mixed tanks, you can use the PAR meter to find areas in the tank for each type of coral. You can also use the PAR meter to adjust mounting height, spacing, or even intensity of individual LED modules to create the PAR ranges that you're looking for and the satisfaction that comes with knowing that you did it right. The single most important thing that I'm going to share today is corals are amazingly adaptive creatures. They'll actually adapt to many of our mistakes in lighting if we only give them a chance. Meaning set it up right the first time and then resist the temptation to change things because you're more likely to experience a setback than an improvement. If you do want to change something, after you do it, give it 6 months to a year to see the results. So perfecting spread, spectrum, and PARs, what this mini-series is all about. Today, the 80-20 and getting 80% of reefers what they need to know. But what about the finer details, science, and supporting evidence that satisfies the other 20% who want to dig deeper? Well, that's what this playlist mini-series is all about. Knowing not just the how, but the why things work as we transition from proficiency to mastery. It's all found in our lighting playlist down in the comments or right here.